Palestinians, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, are forced off their land by that conflict. So one starting fact is 5.9 million Palestinians are refugees.
But what we don't realize is that what's happening in the Congo is happening in your backyard as well. 6 million people, over 6 million people have died in the Congo because it's the same conflict, right? In the DRC, we have militia groups, we have neighborhood trees, but why are they fighting? Why people die is to get control of our resources.
Join me, Maryann Okon, as we dive deep into the most pressing issues, uncovering the truth and analyzing the impact on a global scale. From the corridors of power in Washington to the bustling streets of Accra, we've got you covered. We'll take you on a journey through different political systems, exploring the challenges and triumphs of the nations near and far. Hear from world leaders, experts, newsmakers, and everyday citizens as they share their perspective, providing a comprehensive overview of the political landscape. Tune in every Thursday, 4 to 5 p.m. on Hard Facts to be a part of the global conversation on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Is the nation's number one talk news and sports radio station. We're broadcasting live from our audiovisual studios right here in Itimi and Crescent, Victoria Island, Lagos. This is Hard Facts, and I'm Maryann Okon. On Global Review today, we're going to the United States of America to take a look at what's been happening there. Of course, looking at all the political developments recently. Most importantly, the government shutdown. For those who do not know, across the United States, a storm is brewing. It's not from nature, but from the heart of politics itself. For the fourth time in 5 years, Washington faces the prospect of a government shutdown as partisan battles over spending and immigration threatens to grind the federal government to a halt. Now, as of this week, lawmakers have until Friday midnight to reach a funding deal, or the consequences hit home, because over 2 million federal workers could be furloughed. Yes, 2 million federal workers would be furloughed or forced to work without pay. Vital programs like food assistance, child nutrition could face delays, and the federal contracts worth about $4 billion could still stall. Now, meanwhile, outside the Capitol, thousands are marching under a new banner called the No Kings Movement, a protest against what many Americans describe as the creeping concentration of power in the presidency. Judicial bias, growing inequality. Demonstrators from New York to California have flooded city squares, all of them demanding accountability. They're demanding transparency and a recommitment to the democratic ideals in the United States. My guest is joining me from Canada. He's Alexander Von-Rugen. I hope I got his name right. Alex, it's so good to have you join us. I'm so excited to listen to what you have to say on the show today. Welcome.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Lovely. Let's start with the government shutdown. I mean, I think we've seen this before under Biden, and here we are again under Trump, yet another government shutdown. At first, it looked like, it was all fun and games, but now it's getting clearer and clearer. This might not be fun as, Trump thought it would be.
Well, I would disagree with that. First of all, there's been many shutdowns of the government with both Democratic and Republican leaders. Clinton had many. Obama had the longest shutdown at 16 days until, of course, Trump came into power in his first term. And his shutdown was about 30 or 31 days. We're not at that point yet. The interesting thing about this shutdown, it's Democrat Party driven, but it's really empowered Trump to fulfill his agenda. That's the irony of the shutdown. The Democrats are forcing it, yet Trump is utilizing his powers now, which fall on the executive branch of the government and the Department of Management and Budget, to disperse funds at their discretion without congressional approval. So, of course, Trump is playing hardball. He's defunding all Democratic initiatives and Democratic states. And he's fulfilling his agenda to follow the Department of Government Efficiency, which he incorporated with Elon Musk. Elon's no longer with that division. However, he's laying off government employees and giving their termination papers. That, of course, is being fought in court, but it's accelerated what his agenda was in terms of, as he would put it, cleaning the swamp, draining the swamp. So when we say this is not following in Trump's favor, I would tend to disagree with that.
Huh. So you really think it's in his favor? But I mean, the workers are complaining. There might be a furlough. The government is going to be losing economically. I mean, I was reading Reuters today, and I'm looking at how much money the government might lose in all of these days that the shutdown is going on. So really, who gains at the end of the day?
Is it really losing, or is it just deferring? Because if we're putting things on hold today only to recapture them another day, we haven't lost anything. We've disrupted the process, and maybe that disruption is intentional right now to gain support or to fill one's agenda, which Mr. Trump obviously has. He's not a conventional president. He doesn't do conventional things, but he is a take charge kind of guy. He's got Republican support for that, and well, the Democrats just hate him for it.
Let's talk about the global ripple effects. A U.S. shutdown isn't a domestic issue. The U.S. is, of course, a world power. Markets in like Asia and Europe already wobble at every mention of it. How is this uncertainty, going to impact global economy? Because everyone's watching. Especially emerging markets like us here in Nigeria, who really rely on the US dollar for stability.
Well, you're absolutely correct. I would say Africa as a continent will feel the impact more so than anywhere else in the world. I mean, Trump's on a South East Asia tour right now. He just came back with a magnum deal out of China for 25 million tons of soybeans. Which he negotiated with President Ping. That's a victory lap for his negotiating skills. In terms of defunding U.S. aid or canceling U.S. aid, in terms of defunding the UN and a lot of the NGOs in Africa, I think this is a message Trump has on his agenda to Africa, that he wants to promote trade, not aid. And I think it will act as a catalyst to the benefit of Africa in the long term. But there's going to be some suffering in the meantime. And of course, the corruption is going to be grossly affected by this, because it thrives on a lot of these grants and monies from the U.S. government. And I think though the corrupt politicians or military leaders or whoever the recipients are of this money are going to suffer the most. And hopefully, it's going to act as a catalyst to better relationships with Africa in the future. A little bit of suffering now, but long-term gain in the future.
Okay. Let's talk about trust, because there is also that trust factor. A Pew Research Center study this month actually showed that only 16% of Americans say that they trust their federal government. Which is a record low. How does this erosion of trust influence both policy making and these protests that we're seeing? I mean, we're seeing the Snow King process, and we've seen large numbers across, America.
Well, you have to understand a lot of this publicity is Democrat Party driven. They're basically desperate right now. They've lost the election. They've got an autocratic type leader at the helm of the government, namely President Trump right now, who has an agenda to fill. His agenda is nothing new. This was his election platform, to drain the swamp and to make change in America, to make the government more efficient, to deal with the illegal migrant situation, to deport illegal immigrants, to close the borders, to have selective immigration rather opposed to unfettered immigration, and to defund programs that were not in the best interest of the American people. He didn't make a secret of that. That was his election platform.
Interesting. Let's look at history of government shutdowns. It's like you said, it happened on the Obama, under Bush. They've been 21 in total. It's becoming some sort of a routine since 1976. Each seems to deepen the polarization in America. Is the American system, if you look at it, I've studied a bit of it, is it really built to withstand so much strain, or is it time for some sort of reform to take place so that these shutdowns are not the only thing that people resort to or governments resort to?
Well, it's to keep the system fair and in parity, regardless of which party is in control. To change the system now would be require a constitutional amendment. That would take approval from 66% of the Senate, 66% of the House of Representatives, and 75% of all states. So you can appreciate getting an amendment to the Constitution would be a task that could drag out for 2-3 years. It's not going to happen. By shutting the government down, it's basically a protest from the opposing party not to approve a budget. And I guess a political form of extortion to get their demands approved in order to keep the government growing. That's where it outcasts the votes. If the Democrats have an agenda that they want filled, but they can't get the votes for it, they will stop the government basically by shutting it down until the government meets its criteria and agenda. Trump, ironically, has used that shutdown to his advantage, and it's very frustrating.
Absolutely. Let me talk about the flirtation, I want to put it like that, of a third term for Donald Trump. We've seen one of his on and off again followers on television say that that's the plan. The plan is to get a third term for Donald Trump. And at some point, he seemed to have maybe welcomed the idea, even though, I mean, I don't think it's possible with the Constitution. But what do you think about, even floating the idea of a third term bid for Donald Trump?
It's very much alive. And I'll tell you, we're getting tidbits of information. But the truth of the matter is the 22nd Amendment, which was adopted in 1951, after FDR's unprecedented 4 terms in office. Mind you, keep in mind he was a wartime president. So wartime presidents rarely secede, or they can, under the Emergency Powers Act, can delay an election. So that opens the door here for several things. We both know the amendment says no president can run more than 2 terms. And if they're disqualified from running 2 terms, the loophole would have been, well, maybe he can run as a vice president on the next run. But if you're disqualified from being president because you've had 2 terms, you're automatically disqualified for running as vice president. We can start a war. If we start a war, we can delay an election, so I can extend my term. Trump is not a warmonger. He's a peacemonger. He wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I strongly doubt he wants to start a war. Look at what's happening in Venezuela right now. He's surrounding the country. They want a regime change, but they're not landing troops on land. Maduro will have to do something very serious to justify that. Now, here's the loophole. And we see this going on right now. You'll notice there's a focus from the Justice Department investigating the fake news or a contrived attempt to discredit Trump in his first election. There was the Russia scandal that Russia was backing him in the election. There's been leaks now from the FBI that there's emails from Obama acknowledging it. No charges have been laid as of yet. However, this opens the door for an argument that if Trump's first term could be delegitimized because of voting interference by the Democrats, even though he did win, he won with a slim majority, which really made him impotent in terms of getting the agendas that he wanted to see fulfilled in his first term. He was constantly held up, notwithstanding he was charged with corruption in New York. They raided his home. They did everything they could to discredit him, and yet he persisted and won the second election. So if they could delegitimize his first term, it would mean maybe he didn't serve a first term. It was a mock term. So therefore, it could open the door to a second term, which would be the new upcoming election time. That's one theory. The other theory is Rubio and Vance are doing a good job. If they run on a ticket as president and vice president, Trump would likely be the new Secretary of State, which is a position he would love because he would be the global negotiator. And in effect, he'll be controlling the House. People might say, well, that's impossible. Well, I would strive to say, did Biden really control his House, or was Obama still the controller behind the scenes?
Do you also let's examine the person of Donald Trump? I mean, he's been seen as so many things: a negotiator, a business guy, not necessarily a hardline Republican. You know, he's a man of many parts, a golfer. But then, does he come across to you as someone who would go through all that trouble because he wants to stay in power at any cost? Does he come across as that guy, or some guy who's ready to, keep it moving right after his tenure ends?
I would best describe him as a bit of a human chameleon. He goes with the flow. Yes, he was a Democrat once in his life, but there was an opening in the Republican Party, and all indications indicated the Republicans were going to win, and that's why he went for the nomination and got it. His mannerisms of discrediting his opponents, Crooked Hillary, Little Marco, he had names for everyone, and somehow the public just ate it up, and they loved it, and he got elected. He's been wishy-washy on the Ukraine-Russia situation. He's on, he's off. There's Tomahawk missiles, there's no Tomahawk missiles. Every time he talks to Putin, he seems to waver. Now he's getting annoyed with Putin. He's discovered he's been played. So as a negotiator or a master negotiator, he has to give and take, and I think he's demonstrated that. At the end of the day, he's got a big ego. He wants a Nobel Peace Prize for sure. And he's got an agenda, but I think, in his mind, he's doing what's right for America. I do believe he believes he's right.
There are those who look to the US as some sort of poster child for the perfect democratic picture. But with Trump in it and all that's necessarily happened over time, there are a lot of people who are saying maybe America is not necessarily, as democratic as we thought it was. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's no king's protests all over America. Nobody's getting shot. They're definitely Democratic driven. I mean, right now, all the anti-Trump groups are amassing themselves. The Palestinian contingent, the DEI contingent, the government workers that are getting laid off contingent, the immigrant contingent, the anti-ICE contingent. So that's amassing these groups, and they're working as a collective around America, and they have the right to protest. That's part of a democracy. There's a lot of stone throwing going back and forth, but until they're being shot or arrested, democracy still rules. So I would say America still leads the world in that. I mean, if we look at other countries around the world that don't react well to any opposition whatsoever, they imprison opponents, or they disappear them, or perhaps they shoot Gen Zers that are peacefully protesting and have no guns, yet somehow they seem to get shot in the back.
Okay, Alex, we know who you're talking about. Yes, thank you. Great. Finally, Alex, if you were advising Washington today, what's the one thing the U.S. must do economically or politically to prove democracy still works for the people. Because, you know, if you tell that to Nigerians right now, we don't even know what we're practicing as a system of government.
Well, I think Trump still new in his term. He hasn't even reached the half mile point yet. And the results will speak for themselves. Now, is he censoring certain information? Absolutely. He's controlling government departments. He's trying to pressure Powell at the U.S. Fed for lowering interest rates, which, by the way, he was successful this week. They lowered them another 0.25%. Yet they had no information to rely on because Trump shut down the Department of Statistics, which is all part of the government shutdown. And that works in Trump's favor. So I think we've got to give him a little more time to prove that the efficacy of his policies. And he's having to work as an autocrat to get them done, because if he didn't, and we left it up to Congress, it would be paralysis through analysis, and nothing would happen.
I want to say thank you, Alex. I've enjoyed every single minute of this conversation. Alexander Von-Rugen is a geopolitics expert. He's a global policy analyst, and I loved having him today on Global Review. Thank you so much, Alex. And I'm hoping that we can get you back soon on the show to talk more about some geopolitics. Maybe not the U.S. this time. Maybe we can talk about Canada.
Oh, I have, that's my passion. So anytime.
All right.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Lagos, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we're talking medical negligence and, of course, medical malpractice in Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.